Going forward, the replay, uh, it'll be it'll be on the replays, but we're not live yet. So yeah, there's a lot going on out there. There's a lot of interesting developments.
Absolutely.
Huh?
Absolutely.
I know, and the intel has just been amazing, amazing. We publicized 3 sessions that we did. We were just recording them, just for our own purposes, and we decided to put. I did a live on one. Morgan did a post, and then we actually put 2 out, and they were very interesting because it started with the Earth grid that I've only seen reference made of, which was say a sphere around the sphere of the Earth that people have talked about. It's lighting up, and so in this first one we went into it, it completed, right? But in that moment we passed through it, and there was another one behind it that we hadn't seen, right? That we hadn't expected or whatever, and it was this gigantic new infrastructure made of this multidimensional octahedron pattern with all this akashic in it. It was amazing. So we had a couple of those, and then the third one was really surprising. It was taken to the inverse, which was metaphorically beneath the Earth, which was the inverse of the infrastructure that had always existed, yet it was the polarity of it.
Right.
And it was a very heavy type of experience, and we shared it. But I saw the beauty of it, and that what's always been there on both ends of the spectrum, so to speak. But anyway, so there's been a lot of I've been really looking forward to this. Our Todd and Franco twin flames. We're all twin flames. The universe is our twin flame. Everything external of us is that. But I had a couple of things come up because I had some, the sequential aspect of what's been happening. The synchronicity has just been getting bigger, or more and more cohesive and synergetic. And so I'm like, okay, I'm getting this. This is just like every day. It's like you're reading a new book, reading a book, and you're just getting deeper and deeper into it. So I have a couple of great questions.
I don't know if I have any good answers today.
Oh, I think you do. I know you do. And
all right.
Well, that's a great thing about sitting down with you, because people, everybody gets their own level, I guess, of downloads, and of course, as we work our way out of comparison and superiority, inferiority, pedestals, and all that stuff, it's nice to be able to sit down with people that are still down to earth and don't let it get to them. I don't know how I could have ever experienced the kind of things you have since the womb, and maintained my egoic balance or imbalance or whatever you want to call it. But so one of the things that I had a couple of things. I remember one now, and I'm sure I remember the other one. But one of the things is this: I'm seeing a new wave of prognostication. Okay, that, for lack of a better word, of what's coming in the near future.
Right.
And it has a flavoring of what was the first time I really saw it. I've seen it many times, but it was real big. And I think it was October 2019. Everyone started saying the solar flash is coming. It's going to be here in October, and everybody go get your water and your non-perishable food, and be prepared, and this and that. 3 days of darkness and all this stuff. And of course, all of them have fallen flat on their face. Some very obviously man-made, more obviously man-made, such as Q and Trump is going to save us. And I'm not knocking anyone or anything, but my point is this. I see it out there, and part of what I see is this I can't tell you everything that's going to happen, right? And I'm going, okay, wait a minute. Part of the intel that I've received is that, and I got this from this first part from you, which is I asked you a question one time, and I said, "What is the role of the galactics? Why are they here?" And obviously the elemental energy and other energies come and go, but the galactic seems to be really pronounced. And you said, "Well, the galactics are kind of like facilitators," and that's like, "Oh, okay." So the journey moves onward. 2021 moves onward. I start having these conversations, as we all do, I guess, in our own way. And as you know, up there and down here, I'm quite the instigator. My attitude is agitate, agitate, agitate in let's get it moving kind of thing. So I understand that those like you that have certain things that they're privy to, which is part of their role, have explained that, and I totally understand this, that it can't be divulged, just like in our personal communion with our higher self, let's just say our soul, that we might have had that conversation and it says to us, well, I can't tell you everything because then why the hell are we doing this, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to take the fun out of it. I don't want to take the purpose out of it. But that being said, I also feel like based on the acceleration, the continued acceleration of information and code and experience, that we're moving this thing along because we do want to rip the Band-Aid off. And so I feel like there will definitely be a point in time, and it may just be my own delusion, but where everything is stripped away. And maybe it's not everything, but at our level of comprehension, it's enough to feel like everything. So my question is, along those lines, why can't okay, I left one thing out. In my conversations with the universe, with my soul, I was told, and this happened to me a month ago, and then I ran into a couple of brother, sister souls that unsolicited provided the same information. So I know that information's out there, which is that, there's the same pattern here as there is, as above, as below above. And I've always understood when I've traveled through dimension and had experiences that I've noticed there's a touch of the egoic. There's a touch of imperfection, which would apply to all things, but I guess that one point where we're all one. And so I respect that. I understand it, and also at the same time the value of the human, knowing that it's just as important and has an equal representation at the round table of spirituality, where no one is a leader, there is no hierarchy. So with those two things kind of on the landscape, I came to my own, and I'm not putting this on anyone, that we are comprised of all these things that have provided the code for us, however that may be, through our personal experiences, through people like you, that it is all code. The traumas code, the downloads and transmissions are codes, and so on. And so my understanding is that we are not aligning with any of this stuff. We are remembering, and that includes the galactics who are facilitating, those aspects of us that are facilitating, and that we are actually raising our frequency, or our combination of frequencies, to a vibration that is beyond any and all things, to include the facilitators that are our galactic aspects, which sounds, partly could sound like it's superior, kind of a superior statement or a sanctimonious statement, but it's not, because I understand that if we can raise our frequency above that which we call the galactic frequency, that every timeline, every dimension, every species, every aspect is raised with it into a higher level of alignment. Okay, so having said that, why will we hold back any information that we would receive in that, in my opinion anyway, it is part of our free will and sovereign choice, if we're in alignment in our heart, not to buck the system, but to stand in our sovereignty and embody our sovereignty and be sovereign in regard to what we might think it was limited to, such as our governments, our religious institutions, our cultural paradigms, but to be sovereign all the way till we're one. So how would you answer that? I mean, is the lid being taken off? Where do you stand with it on a personal level? What do you see in the collective level? Can we just rip these Band-Aids off?
Well, it depends on what Band-Aid we're talking about, because the thing is, if anything is held back, yeah, sometimes it can be egoic or whatever, superiority, saying, okay, I don't want to share it because I want to be the only one knowing it. Some people can play that game, especially when they haven't gotten their egoic part mastered. Because one of the things I understood from a very young person at the time, and even through my guide, that was very, very, let's say firm, okay, about it, had said, listen, you understand that there is a ego operating system, and it would love to grab that in one way or another and kind of make you feel either good, bad, right, wrong, superior, less than, whatever, and it's going to do that. And if you're going to be sharing anything and assisting humanity as you are here to do, and many of us are, at this point in time, you cannot have it run you. You cannot, because the moment it does that, the ego automatically changes the frequency, changes your vibration, and also changes the message, in the sense where the message now does not come pure, clear, full spectrum. It comes kind of deviated or something of that nature, which actually doesn't ring true. So some people can believe what is being shared, but does it actually trigger their own knowing? Because that's where it needs to hit, triggering their own knowing. And that has to come in very pure form with no ego. You can't come in and say, well, this is this way or that way, and, I am King Sheba, whatever. I'm just making stuff up, right? And, I'm going to tell you how it is, or that, I'm the authority, or you need to learn from me. No. One of the things I've always said, and you've probably heard me many times over the years, all I'm doing is sharing what everybody already knows within themselves and not accessing at this point. And, the sharing is also triggering their, not only their own memory, but the codes that actually are, kind of dormant within themselves, so that people become empowered. Now, there are other things that are not being shared of that, or we're shared and saying, okay, it's going to happen this way, and then it doesn't happen that way. We have to understand that we have to connect to it, see how that would serve or not, because a lot of stuff gets projected with a potentiality to kind of sway people to kind of materialize or experientialize something of that makeup or that construct. Okay, so that's the other part. The how was I going to say, the part of saying, some things are not shared because it is something that is being simulated with a potentiality to see what an outcome would be. However, it's not there to create a limit. So I see certain things as potentialities, okay, that we have the potential to head in that direction, okay? Now, some people will receive the same, and then what they would do and say, okay, how do we see this of any benefit at this point in time? If we don't see it as a benefit, and the collective is supporting it even unconsciously, then you're going to now take in that experience and alter the experience and upload it into the collective, the field, whatever you want to call it, a different version of it, which encompasses a higher level of understanding and consciousness so that it doesn't play out. See, the thing is, there's two parts to that. And we talked about it a bit in the last time we got together 2 weeks ago, is people want to know what's next, how it's going to happen. Are we going to make it or not make it, or anything of that nature? Or is this going to be where, we have to go into survival mode or anything of that nature? Because they're shutting off their own intuitive, they're shutting off their own knowing, they're shutting off even looking within themselves and aligning with that, and putting all their focus on receiving external instructions external. Now, a lot of time what happens to the external, it actually only becomes a tool, a resource for the ego to go haywire, to go on party mode, because if you're going to hear survival, you're going to hear that we're going to have this or that happening, okay? The last thing you want to do is have the ego go on party town, okay? Right. You want to be at a point where if you even expose yourself to that, you now tune in and say, okay, how much of this do I take any action of or not, without encompassing fear, without encompassing a old pattern of that inverted world of survival, that something needs to be there to protect me, or that it's unsafe or anything of that nature. If there's certain things the collective has agreed to have an experience, specifically in my area, wherever that is, wherever you're located, then do I need to take any action to provide without the fear, but also to accommodate others to have whatever their level of experience they want to have?
Yeah. So this makes sense to me. And let me just take it a little bit before you go to the second one. So here's another way to look at it. In this realm that we're conscious in, there's plenty of narrative, plenty of evidence that there has been a group that has held esoteric knowledge to themselves, secreted it away, and again, as below, above. Okay, so at least I'm open to the possibility, and so in this situation, I, like everyone, am going to question things. Okay. And I guess what I'm saying and what I'm hearing you say in between the lines is that ultimately this happens right here. This is a personal choice. We'll call it, just for the sake of a better word, sovereignty is something that occurs within my field, within my essence, and it may not be limited to those things that are in my conscious awakening as a human being, but also to those things that come in or come down the main line from the infinite intelligence beehive. Okay. I guess what I'm saying, it looks to be the same pattern. I'm not saying anything. In fact, I don't believe in anything malevolent. All right. And that will be maybe the second phase of some of the questions I have. But to question from a place of sovereign curiosity, with the desire to expand and grow, to expand myself and the universal that I'm a part of, doesn't seem, in my mind, to be limited to those things that are presented to us in this conscious state as human beings, but also in the dimensional experiences and the semi-conscious state that I have in dimensional experiences, meditation and communion. Is it okay to question the things that come in to my head, so to speak?
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is the thing. It's not only questioning, you discern, you connect with what aligns, what feels most in alignment for you based on whatever your experience. Now, the thing that you said, there has been groups that have hidden the truth, per se, how things function. But this is the part we need to understand. They only have access to restrict knowledge that is shared amongst people. They cannot restrict within knowledge, the knowledge you have within. Okay? Because you are the library. You have the access. Now, there has been a lot of levels of misinformation, distraction, falsified ideas of deification, this or that, that has kind of created distraction and has created us to kind of look outside, because that is something that they can project. But there's two parts to that again. You know, I like to throw these two parts things because one part is saying, well, okay, we're not going to reinforce, like right now, whatever I share and many other people are sharing is triggering people's memory. So if you're going to take away the trigger of the memory, then you're saying, well, I'm not doing of service. I'm being of disservice. Okay. However, the other part is, if I take away confirmation and reminders, then while you're playing the game, and you can get deeply lost in the game and be enriched in the game and the polarized, you're going to come to a point where you're going to say, okay, that was fun. Now I'm going to access myself and look at the source of what really is. And how the game is designed and what is my potential and what I can do. And not only that, what I am here to offer in all of this. So that's the flip side. So there's both sides of it.
So would you say we could sum it up like this, or add whatever you want to it, that we're on a trajectory? Everything seems to be dual. I put up a meme today when I woke up, coming out of my morning communion, and it was, you know, I don't know how I said it, but it was kind of like, you know, welcome to the greatest show in the universe, where, you know, where there's, I don't know, where there's the greatest duality, and you can see a shit storm and a shift storm happening at the same exact time. Now, having said that, are we on a trajectory? It seems, obviously, that here, as we walk the earth and these things are being deconstructed, and with the gift of quarantine and the energetics behind it, we are going within, and we are turning away from the externalities, and we are tapping into that internal eternal. But by the same token, it seems like in that crazy paradoxical parallel where they're both running side by side, that the information that's coming from what we considered external, non-physical, that in essence, that voice is going away. That just as in our human experience, that voice that is projected on us, and we can understand it as being divine, but it is, because like you said, it triggers us to remember and go within, that by the same token, that voice is that which we are, which has been somewhat, you know, a paranormal or you know, non-physical, is I guess through the embodiment within us, through the remembering within us, is you know, kind of going away. Where it's not going away, but I mean, it's becoming us, and until we're just standing there with us, from both of these parallel, projection is not the right word, but both of these avenues of triggering.
Right. No, well said. I mean, in the way you've explained it. So the thing is, the stimulation that existed, the two types of stimulation, one is the opposite, and the other part of it was the stimulation of our own knowing and so forth. You know, they're playing less and less of a role within ourselves. We're receiving less of it because, you know, we are really tapping into ourselves. And I know the questions come up before, saying, well, okay, if we have a multidimensional soul and we're an active player and we have an active human soul called the human entity and the innate body, what happens to the extras? They don't have the same privileges and they don't have this resource. But the point is, first, it has an innate body that is connected to a lot of that knowledge. And then just because it doesn't have a very specific human entity, it's connected to the collective human entity, which is the full amount. And it will only stream as necessary what is necessary. It just doesn't have a specific signature, a specific channel that it focuses in. And the same thing with the multidimensional soul. So there may be one soul that is operating thousands of physicalities and so forth, but it is not embodied, but it has some form of connection. So it's not robotic to no degree. It may play that robot, but the one thing about them is that they're actually a lot more flexible than many of us, because they can jump from one role to another more instantaneously, because they're more taken on the task of being of service to other aspects of itself. They can flip from one state to another to be of service to Todd, and then to service of Franco, service of John and Fred, whoever.
Regardless of what it looks like, right?
Exactly. So that's the other part of it.
So this is a perfect telepathic segue, because I said I got something. Well, and again, going back to this new wave of intel that I see assimilating, which I see as another wave of storyline, and it's more perfect than the last, but yet it still has the egoic aspect to it, right, which is the human condition, or whatever you want to call it. And I understand that. I'm not judging anyone. I'm just trying to make a point and get some information from you. Okay, so part of it is still carrying what I will consider the stigma of the human condition as we present ourselves the narratives, and this one seems to be that, and I totally agree, and it doesn't take rocket scientists to figure it out, that there is an expanding energy that's taken on the earth. It can be explained in a lot of different ways. One of those that can be explained is that there are many walk-ins occurring at an inordinate level and a very extreme level. You could also say that the energy is coming in much, much faster, and we all know that it is. So what's the product of that? The product of that is that there's a higher level of awakening, awareness, and so on. But there's still a tinge, there's still a stigma aspect to it, which is there are these NPCs, these extras that are not on a level playing field with us, that think we are what we think we are, and that there is an element of soullessness. There's an element of darkness or evil from the human comprehension level, or the human understanding, that still sets us apart, that still doesn't jive with oneness is oneness. Okay, so can you speak to how this might be evolving, why it's evolving this way? I mean, obviously there's a certain element of alignment that just goes with evolution in the universe, but how can we get past this? When are we going to start seeing that everything is the same thing, no matter what we think in our lesser God mentality? And what's the purpose of it, if there is any, in terms of triggering us more?
Well, yes, and it's that to trigger us more. But the thing is, at this point in time, we know that we're all one. We know that we're all playmates. We're all playing together, and we're going to play different roles. For example, like even taking kids playing in a schoolyard or something, when they did play a lot more in the schoolyard, and they would pretend and they would take on different roles and so forth. And they would switch roles or whatever it is. And you're not going to go turn around and say, well, that kid is an evil kid or this is a good kid or whatever it is. They're playing roles, right? So as much as a lot has been focused on, various role players out there that are playing a deceptive dark role, are pushing agendas, are pushing narratives, are displaying where there is a demise of the human and so forth. Okay, if we're going to see it as they're evil and we have to fight the evil, then we're still projecting the separation. We're still projecting the polarization, and we're never really going to move forward. But the thing is, the realization, because I've seen people that used to fight me of sorts, when I say fight, resist me, let's put it this way, when they used to say, no, that's bullshit. You're just trying to convince us that everybody's an equal. No, they're bad, right? And the thing is, as long as you're in that mode, you're in their range, they're in that frequency. But what are you doing? Are you getting lost in it? Yes. But at the same time, what are you doing? You're reaching a saturation point. Because once you start accessing pure love, which is your true nature, when you start accessing and seeing that oneness, and that's what it's all about, you see them as another aspect of you. Then you love them for whatever role they play, and their role becomes more quickly non-required, and so they can be relieved of the role quicker. And it's not because we're going to bring them to Guatemala, Guatemala, whatever that place was called, and then we're going to execute them, cut their heads off and do this or that. That is still playing an ego game. That is still forcing the polarization. We have to understand that they are playing a role for that. I'm not demonizing them either, because there's a lot of people that project that. They're playing a role also to accentuate the last part of the polarization until we get to the point of saying, well, we don't choose to polarize any longer, and we see it for all the same. Because once we do, and we see it in that pure state, then darkness cannot be upheld. And it's not because you're going to destroy the darkness. The darkness enters the more fuller spectrum. See, you can't be on your mighty horse and saying, I am a light worker, and they are the dark worker. Because what you've done is you've taken full spectrum and divided the spectrums. So now you have only one side of the spectrum, and then the other. How could you be experiencing pure love when you're demonizing the other side?
Yeah.
How could you be judging anything that's going on and be pure light, pure love, pure full spectrum? How could you be reflecting sourceness or what people call also Christ consciousness in polarization, in separation, in only facets? I've said this for a few decades, and people thought, you're absolutely on drugs, okay? And I loved them for whatever they were saying at the time, because I can see that they're not there yet, and that's okay. There's no disrespect. They're just doing whatever they're doing, and I love them for it because they're playing their role. The point is, when I said, when you are in 0 point, when you are in oneness, when you are in neutrality, you're now a reflection of source essence. You're now in pure completion of creation. You are now in that state where you can now design every part of it rather than the thing. So when I used to hear people say, well, I'm a light worker, I'm this and that. Well, if you are, and I'm not saying that that's just a label, okay? But the moment you see that as the light worker, they're judging the other side, then you see that they're still in ego, they're still in polarization. And I love them both for whatever role they're playing until they kind of get to the point of saying, wait a minute, I'm missing pieces of this.
Right.
Okay. This is an experiment I've done, and this is kind of natural experiment. And this is an experiment others may have done also, and I'm sure there are. When you embrace the person that you see as evil and say, listen, I understand you. I still love you for where you are. That roughness, that rebellion, that kind of whatever starts to fade because it merges. They start to see more of themselves. They start to expand and access more of their essence so that that role that they were playing starts to fade. I've had people that have been victimizers. This is even in the days that I was a kid, okay? And when I used to talk to them and I say, what really bothers you about all this stuff? Or, I can't remember the words I was using then, but why do you hate people this much? When you showed interest and a level of understanding, they softened up. And not only softened up, their walls came down, their victimizer role diminished greatly. And then they were open to become maybe a friend, maybe just to be heard, right? And then they no longer had to play that role. Now, some were hardcore and they decided to play that role, and then you just love them for the to play the role. Go play the role, whoever you want to play with. But they're not going to play with somebody that's coming in with love because they're not going to feel that way. I had one time I got beaten up as a kid to close to death from this other big kid. I don't understand why, but I saw, some people came to the rescue of sort. They had to play their role. I played my role, whatever that was at the time. And, but some days later, I saw the kid and I still had love for this kid. He came to apologize. In fact, he embraced me and said, I don't know why I did what I did. He says, you still look at me and you're not afraid of me. And somehow I feel love you feel love for me. And I don't know how to understand that.
Holy shiitake mushrooms, man.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. And this kid used to give me a ride on his bike afterwards. I didn't even own a bike then. But like the whole thing changed, right?
Do you
So,
think that's you know, I remember more 2 or 3 years ago, Morgan wrote a post about an understanding she'd had from a few years earlier, which had to do with Jesus and the miraculousness of the healings that have been passed down, the stories, the anecdotes. And in the post, she talked about that he didn't heal anyone, that he simply reflected that which you're speaking of,
mhm.
and that in itself provides the transformation or alignment or healing, whatever you're talking about. Would you say that what you just told us about was an example of that? That's what this
Yes,
kid
yeah,
was saying.
yes. And exactly. This is the thing. We reflect love no matter what. And then it triggers within themselves that love they already have. Because everybody has love. Nobody's absence of love. We may have egotistic idea that I'm good or not good, this and that, whatever it is. But pure love exists in all of us. We may not be displaying it all the time, but I can tell you one thing, and you can tell me that I'm full of shit, Todd, and that's okay.
Have
I
y'all
don't.
noticed how as the shows have gone on and time's gone on that Franco's cursing a little bit more?
You can say whatever you like because I love you anyways. All right. Okay. Even the one that plays the most darkest role is doing it with love.
I totally agree with you. I've always said that.
There
Yeah,
you go.
I've
Thank you.
always said I think of my two chief antagonists in my life, and we all have them, right?
Yeah.
And I always say to myself, who better to play that role than that who is closest to you
Hmm.
in the true reality of, say, the monad or soul family or whatever. Yeah, I get that. I believe you 100%.
And and my father was an extra, and he played the role immensely because it didn't matter how much he tried to break me, okay, physically, and so forth. I just became stronger because my resources was not external. The resources I had to tap into was me. Now there's two parts. Again, here goes two parts. One was the fact he played that role, and I had to get my own inner resources because I didn't get confirmation to that, which was one thing. The other part is whatever role he was playing at that point, and it made me so much stronger because there was so much projected denial of whatever I displayed and whatever I showed. Okay. Because one of the things he was trying to teach me is that I was too loving, too soft, and I let people get away things, and you got to be tough like he was, right? And angry like he was. He says, because anger intimidates people. Anger, you get whatever you want. And I said, no, I do it with love. I give the example at that time that you can attract more flies to honey than to vinegar, right? Right. I don't think he ever got it, but anyways.
Well, he did at some
Okay.
level, right?
But that's okay. I mean, he may not recognize it in that. But I knew that when there was an agreement for him to come into my life as my father or play the role of my father, and my mother playing the opposite role. I mean, she was different in the respect of what roles they played. I found it very instrumental as creating a catalytic environment for me to have no external reference point, not with them, not with people, not through religion that was being projected heavily within my family dynamics, to actually tap in within. Now, I did say, that I did have Yeshua, or known as Jesus, every so often come in and just kind of tweak, throw a little bit of a seed of reminder every so often. But I had to rely on within to kind of use my own navigation. It didn't matter what the picture was displaying on the external, to say, what do I want to experience? How do I want to feel this? Now, I cannot say, because it wouldn't be true, that I did not have a level of intense experience too, from the human inverted aspect of it here and there. But at the same time, I also had the other part where was that knowing to see the perfection in all of this, that there was a movie and whatever it is, even though sometimes the body said, well, this movie seems a little too freaking real because there was extreme accentuated pain, accentuated whatever was going on there, right? But at the same time, it kept me solid, and also to use myself as my own reference point. And when I say myself, all parts of me, the body, the human entity. Well, I didn't have a human entity at the time and never really got the chance to have that type of human entity. It was more of an alien entity at the time, which is not there now. But of course, the multidimensional soul, and of course, the soul came in, not as a singular soul with a separated twin soul somewhere. It was a united soul, and then later on it just kept piling up until we're now at 96 combined souls, right? So talking about having a real party. But regardless, it was more of that internal. I'm not making myself special. Don't even look at that. Anybody that's listening to this, I'm not specializing myself. No. I'm just here to share my experience as we're going, because it reflects to where we're all doing, at some point. So, we all got caught up in looking at the outside world, this and that, right? And I remember my father saying a lot of different things. And I remember having a conversation with my mother sometime later, in the sense of, my father said I was no good, this and that, whatever it was, I was whatever it was, right? And And I remember having a conversation with my mother saying, but that's my father's opinion. I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. I see it that I have a different reference point. I didn't use that quite word because I had to speak into her in Italian. And I say, I just really see it differently. I see it this way. I see these parts of it. And then, she would turn around and say, well, but how could you see this when you see the world as it is? And I go, well, I know what the world looks like, but what the world is displaying and what I feel inside is very different. And I know she had a tough time understanding this whole idea. I know that was from the ego part. The tough time when she would say, well, God tells us this way. And I go, but yeah, God's in us. The God that you're referring to. I'm not talking about this isolated deity that has a egotistic tendency to be angry, wrath, take wrath in humanity and judge and whatever else. But I'm saying the pure love, pure God that it's within all of us. I'm not saying it's just in me. It's in everybody. Everybody's God. Everybody is that. And of course, that was kind of off to lunch for her, because at that point it was like blasphemy. And that's kind of the word she used, but in an Italian version of it.
I'm surprised they didn't try to exorcise the demons.
Oh, they did twice.
Is that right?
Am I supposed to say that online? I went to 2 exorcisms, by the way, as a kid, because they were kind of thought that I was possessed because of the fact that what I shared and what I did or whatever it was, right? So one was done in the house and another one I had to go to the church, or they brought me to the church. But, at that time I could also hear their dialogues, because I used to hear people's thoughts. I still do to some degree, but in essence, I've turned a lot of that off. It took me many years to turn it off because I didn't want to hear what people thought. I'd rather communicate with their souls, the ones that had souls, and the ones that didn't have souls, I'd just communicate with their own innate consciousness of the body. But at the time, knowing what people think has no value whatsoever. Okay, except if you want to learn what crazy thoughts their egos have, or whatever it is. Okay,
that's probably the shit show. Hey, I just want to take this moment to first of all, let me just say, I don't think you're full of shit. In fact, I think you're full of shift, and that's why I love talking to you. But on the comment, just to bring kind of put this to bed, NPCs, extras, those human entities that don't have a soul. Okay. Right. Let me just give you a metaphor. We all live in a community. Mm-hmm. Everybody has their own abode. Mm-hmm. That home, that's their feng shui. That's their space, their essence, their field. We all share a common area. Mm-hmm. We go out for a walk. There's a courtyard. That's a common area. I see from energetically that this space is the those that I'm speaking of, the extras, the NPCs, the ones without souls in a human entity, and that space is basically manifest or reflects the composite of our individual fields or our homes in this example. So as we add up all the energy of the different homes, that the space outside will reflect it. So they're more or less, I would say, that block of energy, and I'm not saying that this is it, I'm asking for clarification. That block of energy that I'm describing, say, as this courtyard or this common area, is actually part of our part of the material that we play with. It's not, it's subjective. It's not really for one side or another. It's actually reflecting our collective expression or being. Would that be close to?
Yeah, very, very much so. The NPCs may not have. Now, I'll clarify. I know I've talked about this before, but I'll throw it in again if you don't mind, so that people understand. Okay, the only difference of the role players that are active and versus NPCs, like they call it, or the extras, which is what I call it. I remember when I hear it from can't remember who it was now. That was I heard it and I go, oh, they use the same terminology. That was
Jason Estes, who calls it NPCs.
yeah, he calls
Uh,
it NPCs, but the extras.
that's Dolores Cannon, Edgar
Dolores,
Casey.
yes, I
Yeah.
remember hearing that. I don't know, maybe 5, 6, maybe longer years ago, and I remember, oh, they use the same. She called it the same thing as I was calling it at the time. But anyways, the extras for itself. First of all, they're all aspects of ourself, anyways. The difference is okay. So the ones that actually have a soul, that means they have a multidimensional soul with a very specific signature. That specific signature and that soul brings multidimensional experiences because really what are souls? Souls are, at this point in time, recorders of sorts that record experiences, consciousness, and so forth, and it imparts it in whatever embodiment it takes. Now, the only difference between a multidimensional soul is that it will incarnate on other planets, take on different forms, can be a non-form, whatever it is. It's still learning. It's growing from its spirit essence, like everything else. And because of its specific signature, it takes in its very specific input and piece of the puzzle of its consciousness. So that is one. The human entity is also a soul recorder, but because its makeup is designed for only the human experience, that means it never had a multidimensional experience,
Right.
except it learned from its multidimensional each time it links up with a multidimensional soul. But the purpose of the human entity is to expand the human experience, to record and to expand the consciousness of a human experience without participating and bringing in it from other dimensions and so forth. So really focusing on being the expert of the human.
Yeah.
This is why a lot of times the multidimensional souls highly, highly depend on, because they may have never been here or they've been here minimal times and they're no real experts because of their multidimensional and they haven't spent that much time on planet. They rely on the human entity and they rely on the innate consciousness of the body to give it the groundwork and to give it the understanding and the tools and functionality of the human experience. So it really relies on that. So we can't say, well, okay, the multidimensional is the cat's ass. It's the epitome of highest of whatever. No, especially when it comes into a body of a human body, it really has something to share in its multidimensional, but it cannot play the game fully unless it really connects with the human entity to show it the ropes, to show it the path, and to bring it up to date on what the human experience has gained up to this point in time. And the same thing with what the human innate consciousness or the body itself has to offer. All right. So those combination, the human entity has a specific signature too. So the specific signature of the human, of the multidimensional, of the human entity combining together with the innate. And again, the innate consciousness also has I wouldn't say a signature, but it has a very specific band frequency within itself to be able to create uniqueness for every body. So the display of the body is going to always be slightly different. Okay, so that's that part. When we're talking about the extras, they does have what we call an innate consciousness, but you have to understand the extra is connected to the collective human entity, and it might not be bringing in the multidimensional, but it has freedom to connect.
That's right.
Everybody else's human multidimensionality soul, and to say, I can play whatever role or connect with many.
Yeah. And I got it. I got it. I so got it. Yeah, I get it.
Okay. But I wanted to make sure others understood, because
no, I got it. I just want to spit it out so you can confirm or add or subtract. Okay. Yep. So I love what you said, because first of all, I've never heard this one, that the soul is like a recorder, and that makes total sense. I'm a fractal. My soul is a fractal. It's, and people talk about it all the time. God is experiencing through these fractals. And then you said in the case of the extras that they're not linked in the same manner to the multidimensional. Let's just put it that way. But that they are able to access it through those souls that they interact with. So what that tells me is what I've always innately known. People talk about, hey, some souls were born on Earth and some came from somewhere else. And I've always said, well, there's something to that. Now I can see how it works, because let's say that the Earth was created. With it, there's an evolution. And we don't have to get into all of that, but now you have this, let's just say one human entity, one extra, let's just say that is chicken and the egg. It's formed, it's there. It starts to interact with these multidimensional souls and have a human experience after human experience in different incarnations. And I can see that growth. Because to me, anything that is created has the unlimited potential, regardless of whether you start as a rock or as a deity. Okay. So this is where what this has brought to me today. This is why I was heaving before I talked to you, because I knew something was coming in, in a good way. And so I get it, because this element of narration that is coming out in a wave again, this self-importance, this mentality of the lesser God, I know what I'm talking about and you don't, includes this. Mm-hmm. This is an all-inclusive affair. Right. And nothing is left out. And I love the way that you explain that, because I believe that when you speak these things, or I speak, or someone else speaks these things, and it is the highest alignment of truth in intention and understanding and openness, as I serve myself, I serve the collective, whoever it is, that it is infused into our experience, whether the whole world's watching this person speak it, in this case you, or not. So I really appreciate the clarity. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for wording it in even more understandable ways, So this is what makes it complementary, because you can crystallize it and reshape it in certain ways that, they get two viewpoints, people to trigger their own.
It's a buffet.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the beauty of all of this that's playing out right now, is that we're realizing it more, and the reason, the whole thing about the extras, NPCs, and whatever else. I don't want people to get caught up in the idea, because this is going to be an egotistic roller coaster game, feeling that there's a superiority of the ones that are active and the ones that are not. Because the thing is, you got to look at all of it is still part of the whole. Okay, all of it. And you said the rock, right? Okay. The rock is recording the experience of humanity moving through it, all sentient beings, and Gaia's response, and everything else, because it's still part of the whole. Every part is observing, learning.
I know this because I've been a rock.
There you go. Okay. And the thing is too, and I wanted to bring one thing in, because I wanted to touch bases on something I was going to say earlier, but I didn't get there, because we kind of went off to different directions, because we can go off in lots of directions. Sometimes people, when we were talking about, the negative role players and the positive role players, or whatever it is, the light worker, dark worker, blah, 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 whatever. We have to understand, most of us, in one way or another, have played both sides, because it was constructed that way, that you would play both sides, until you get to the point, of course, that all changed, where it was no longer a necessity to play both sides. You can play any side. And then you get to the true form, there is no sides, right?
Mm.
So somebody can say, well, such and such is an evil person and see them less than. And then you say, well, I'm a good person and I'm better than. Remember,
Well, I
that's
do this and I do that.
yeah, and that's just the flip side, because I can tell you one thing. I spent a lot of times, and then there are other practitioners out there. I mean, I'm not a practitioner, but I've taken on some of those roles over the years. But um, people that have gone into their mighty states of saying, see, I'm, a light work, I'm this and that, I'm only coming and do that. When I've done regressions on them, because we needed to look at certain things, I don't do that now. Haven't done it for quite a few years. But when I was doing regressions, I could regress their souls or their human entities or whatever it is. They saw themselves in sometimes taking roles as killers when they have been really good people at this point now, or executing, or being a victimizer, molester, you name it, and they're shocked. They're going, how could I do that? Well, you have to understand, when you're in your true pure sense, a role is a role. There's no good or bad, right or wrong about it. You're going to play whatever role you need, and you're going to play the role, and then you may want to try the other side of it, and that's okay. Now, even though the necessity of that is not in that same form of requirement anymore, so you can't demonize for another facet of you playing a role, because most likely you may have played that role. And even I got challenged on this, and I love being challenged, because I get to play with people, and then they say, well, yeah, that could have been the human entity that, have taken on the polarized roles. But I am a star seed, and I'm coming from a higher dimension, and I would have never played that role in that part of it. And I go, don't think that there's now no polarization in higher dimensions
That's right.
and
That's what I
on
was saying
other playgrounds or anything of that nature, because I can do it, and I have done it. I've proved it to them where I've regressed them, and they saw themselves blowing up whole freaking planets in some cases. And they're going, what? How could I have done that? I go, well,
No wonder we had our memories erased.
yeah, especially when we're playing certain roles, because, we could see ourselves in
Well,
whatever.
another thing too that really, because so much of what's occurring now, words are important. There's no doubt about it. I don't think they're going away anytime soon, because the throat chakra expansion seems to be the order of the day, people speaking their truth and so on. But the fact that, you've been doing this for 36 years, and the humble persona that you have, and I'm not going to blow smoke up your, that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to say is the value, and I just want to make this point, and so we make sure we take it in. When you're telling this story about when you're a little kid and you almost get beat to death, not, and although it's important, the perspective that you had, and the that you shared, and the example of a being going through something like that, and we know at its core it's energetic, but your one of your gifts was to have that awareness as part of your preparation for your journey or whatever. But the fact that you can tell that story, or anyone can tell their story who has been so different, and in this case, someone who's been in a role of expanding consciousness through what they've been given, but to be able to tell that story, and even the parts about your father, your mother, religion, exorcisms, uh, just to hear that type of thing without a charge, I think is another thing that I'm starting to see come out, especially on this show, where people can talk about their experience from this higher perspective embodied within themselves, it's such a different frequency than that which we came from, the toxicity and I guess victim consciousness. So I just want to make that point, both to point out that we just actually saw a great example of that, but also to encourage people to think about that within themselves, because that's a powerful thing. It's very subtle, but it's very powerful to be able to hear something like that with no charge.
Yeah, let me throw a little piece in because I got distracted again before. At the time I was able to, I was open still to the idea, to the capacities of hearing people's thoughts. And I remember going to the church, being taken to the church, and it wasn't inside the church. It was just kind of behind the altar thing, whatever they called it. And, there was two priests and the holy water and the Bibles and whatever else, and saying whatever they were saying. But I could hear, so my mother's there, like blessing these priests for doing what they're doing and, putting them on a pedestal of sort, right? Meanwhile, I can hear their thoughts. And they were saying at the time, look at this evil woman bringing a demon child, blah, 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 and all of these other things. They were judging my mother for me, right? And so I was kind of laughing, whatever. I wasn't doing anything that, is portrayed in the movies. No, I was just laughing with the whole thing. But I also said to my mother at the time, I said, only if you knew exactly what they're saying. They're not saying very nice things about you. But of course, she wasn't open to hearing that because, priests are holy and they're good and whatever it is. And not that I was trying to say that they were evil, but I wanted to point out that, they also have very negative thoughts or whatever it is, or say negative things, even though they weren't verbalizing it at the time in that space. But anyways, that I wanted
that's an amazing example. Often you think of connectivity, the cosmic web, and you think of these positive things.
Mm-hmm.
But what a great example, almost like a life review example, like people talk about when they transition and they come back, to see the repercussions and the ripples of their own energetic, projection. So here is a woman who's carrying a field of awareness, or whatever you want to call it, of something's wrong with my kid. Mm-hmm. Yet when it goes into the etherics, which you had privy to, it's being shined right back.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. That's really interesting because I always think of, the ripples going out and not coming back. But I guess it always comes back, doesn't it?
Right.
Wow, that's trippy.
Yeah, and the thing is too, I mean, she was set on the fact that she wanted me to be like them in a sense.
Priest. She wanted you to be
well, not like so much the priest, but more like follow the religion, follow the rules, follow this, follow that. And I used to question it. I mean, I used to get in trouble at the school because the school was run by nuns, and I never spoke out in a nasty way or anything like that. I would just say, well, how did that come about? Who made that up or whatever? I wanted to have clarification, but they didn't like that idea.
They must have wanted to wring your neck.
Well, let's put it this way. I got to feel what a ruler feels like, a pointer feels like, and a strap feels like on my hands and legs, and stand in corners time to time for being non-compliant, not...
Well, I don't feel so bad now. I thought I was just a little hellraiser in Catholic school, the 2 years I spent in Catholic school. But
so, I mean, the school stayed very vigilant to that, but then there was more. At first there was nuns, then there were a little less nuns and more other, but they were all strict all the time and whatever. But the point is, and the one thing I had to learn also at the same time: don't tell my parents that what happened at school, because you just get more of it. That's all. It was like, okay, that doesn't work.
There goes the physical manifestation of what I just said.
We're not going there.
Yeah.
It's like, how is it?
Smart, but that's a smart move because, like what I was just saying about the thoughts this woman was carrying into the church and what was being reflected back to her, that's actually another good example of conscious creation in that you were not going to carry it with you. You had the experience, but you didn't spit it out, because if you'd have spit it out, it'd come right back to you, right? I mean,
Right.
that's brilliant.
Yeah. So I felt that I wasn't okay, what's the word for it? I was not really giving too much power of all the stuff that was going on because of that level of consciousness.
Yeah,
But I did realize only a while ago, and I think we talked about it several shows ago, that there was the human part, the unconscious part that was driven by the ego, even though I was not giving it so much credence, but it did create some emotional charges that I never realized and stored.
yeah, you
And
did
then
tell
it
me
came,
about that.
yeah, and
You
then
told
it
me.
came up to the surface. So, what was happening with my father, what was happening with other individuals at the time, even though I kind of laughed it out at times, but at other times it was more intense. But I didn't realize there was still some of it got stored and it never got really processed. And I've had to process it, several months ago, if I think it was earlier this year. But so and it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, there's a part of me that did record that. A part of me did, store a idea or perception about what that meant that others were doing on a collective scale. And they go, oh, okay, well, maybe I wasn't, totally, you know,
Well,
regarded all of that.
yeah, that's a beautiful thing too, because it's the whole, I just realized I am that which I thought I was not. you know, and what better way to get it than in the conscious, awakened human state? That's it.
Yeah.
And you're just a couple of years older than me. I mean, that to be able to number one, to be able to experience that and share that at this point in the game is an extraordinary thing too, because to me it tells everyone, check yourself. Often we want to say, well, I'm open to the gifts of the universe. Well, it's not what, to me it's like it's the things that we don't want to see or don't think we are, that really, to me anyway, my own personal experience has been, when I open to that, and I lay in bed with the devils, so to speak, or swim with the devils, or whatever you want to call it, however you want to describe it in a metaphor, that brings a tremendous alignment, and that's another good point. There's a lot more to it than the fluffy love and light, and it's not that, and it's not even dark. It's just the fear of identifying ourselves with it, and this is really good stuff. I remember you talking about that too, and I think that the other thing that really I took away from it was your revelation, the epiphany of having created a persona.
Mm-hmm.
And
That was the other.
when you told me that, I was like, whoa, dude, like, and it wasn't just the way the story was told, but then I took it into myself, and I'm like going, oh, wait a minute. Oh, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these aren't even ones that I had realized about myself.
Yeah.
These were ones that I realized in the moment that you shared that code with me. We were in Sedona, and I'm driving back going, oh, there's that one with my grandmother. There's that one with my first wife. There's that one with this kid, that one with that kid. And I'm thinking, holy shiitake mushrooms, Todd, you got work to do. No wonder I lost half my hair on my head in the 60 days back from Sedona, integrating all that stuff. But yeah, but what a sign of the times too, because if it's happening to one, it's happening to another, and it's happening, collectively. Beautiful.
Yes, and exactly. And the thing is, that's what we're doing collectively. We're, The thing is, everything that we've taken on, no matter even those other personas and personalities and whatever else, they all gave us multiple different experiences and whatever else. But, you come to a point where it's no longer of necessity, and you want to say, oh, okay, well, I can now let go of that one. I don't need it anymore. Um, Sometimes you don't realize that it's there, because you get so used to it, and it becomes transparent. And then, with all the stuff that's going on, and I think I told you the story because there was a person that came a friend of ours that came to visit, and
Yes.
and
Yeah.
just said it, uh, which got me to look into it. And then I discovered it. And so I had to deal with that. And then when she came back like a week later, I said, well, I have to thank you for that role that you played and for sharing it. She had no recollection of it. I said that? I don't remember saying anything like that. Why? Because my higher self communicated with her higher self and said, you need to say this because it's time for him to see this part and say it. But the regular overall consciousness didn't need to have that as a reference point, and she didn't recall at
Wow.
all.
Yeah. I've
But
experienced
it
stuff
was
like that, and
impactful.
I've heard of that stuff too, happening as well. It's like having the product of a session without having this officially having a session, right? I mean, it's like, so let's shift gears.
Okay.
So obviously, you've got part of your purpose is to be able to give us kind of a state of the union. Every every time we get on, we're like, man, last month was but yeah, I mean, it's such a wild ride this summer. We move into September. 9 is the number of completion. The Septembers have been really, really, the same energy the last few years, which is kind of like coming out of this, going into that. Good energy, good momentum. But this thing about the polarities running side by side seems to be front and center. Where these extremes of, let's say, the physical, non-physical, truth and illusion, whatever it may be, seem to be like walking hand in hand. Now, I don't know if that's what the theme is, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Why does that seem to be becoming amplified? I can only think it's for good reason. And also anything else you can add to what might be going on now, and what we could expect.
Well, if anybody wants to get more detail, the episode I did yesterday on advancing consciousness, I gave an update.
Excellent.
And it's
What
the
was the
very
name? What was it? It was actually coming on. I saw it come on, and it was coming on right when I was going on.
Yes,
So
yes,
I
most
saved it on
likely.
my. But so,
Yeah.
what was the name of it?
It was number 89, and it was called, I'll tell you right now. Give me a second. Yeah, so it said basically update, and then it said, and activational process to supercharge you. What was it called? So it was episode 89. That I did yesterday. So it's up, and I gave an update, and then I also did a process with people to kind of give them the tool. So if anybody missed it, grab it. I'm going to be, I isolated the process separately too. So if you go to the video, it's all there, but I'm going to also post the video, and I'm also going to provide a link for the audio for the process so that people can
Excellent.
repeat it.
Now I'm a little bit confused because I could have sworn, now that you've jogged my memory, there was there one before it that had the same theme? Because I could have sworn you had one, and then I went to look for it and I couldn't find it.
Okay, so number 88, that one was called "A Look at Our World and the Current and Our
I
Current
remember that one.
Reality."
But was
Yeah.
this reset? Was it
And then
was
there
it
was another one, 87, that was called "Facing the Truth or Our Reality
I
and
must be
Our
confused.
Role."
I must
And 86 was, what was it? "Using the upcoming intensities to become more of you." But 89 was, the title was basically update and activational process to supercharge you.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So next episode, which I do on Tuesday, unless I have to reschedule again, which I'm not planning to, but you never know.
So you did reschedule. That's what I was
I
getting
did
at.
reschedule. It was
Okay,
supposed to
that's
be,
why I got confused. Okay, I
yes,
got
yes.
you.
Sorry
Okay.
about that. It was supposed to be Tuesday, and then it didn't work out because my physicality basically said, we're shutting you down, and we're not functional. So
Okay.
there was no way I could get on. So I
Right.
rescheduled it for Thursday, which was yesterday. So I did it yesterday. So
Okay.
that's probably the confusion. And so, excuse me. What I said to people is that next Tuesday, hoping that everything goes well, that I will be dealing with people's questions and so forth. However, I got the message afterwards that I need to do another process for people. And the process is so that I'm just going to give it a little tidbit there for people to look at. There's a lot of, and I did talk about it in the episode that I did yesterday too, where there's different ways to access changes in our lives. So you can access, and also the changes in reality. You can either fight it, or do it the effortful way, or you can do it in where you actually go into the operating system and so forth. So we're going to do a little process where people are I'm going to walk them through together. We're going to do it together for people to look at a certain circumstance in their life, and then create an alteration in it, and then see the external reality reflected or change in some way. And then I also will do the question and answers. But that came up that, and the reason I'm providing these things because they're very beneficial tools with the stuff that's going on right now.
Right on.
So we're gonna play with that. I need 1 minute.
There you go. Take 2 minutes.
Okay,
Take 2
thank
minutes.
you. So you can
Here.
serenade the people. I'll be right
All
back.
right, I will. I actually have a little something for them.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so we have a commercial break, and I am going to play it.
Allow yourself to be in the funk. Experience the funk. Be there in the funk. Acknowledge the funk. Thank the funk. Be there in the funk. Experience the funk. Acknowledge the funk. Thank the funk. It's like the energy doesn't create funkiness.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? I love that. A friend of ours came up with that. Friend of ours, God, I see his face. I can't see his name. Brother out of the Northeast U.S. He sent that to me. He follows Franco. Isn't it wonderful to be able to talk to Franco and other people on the show, whether they're well known or not well known, and they bring their human game. I'm so proud to be a part of this platform, and it's amazing. It really is. Truly, I have that on my dashboard here. That's how I found it so quickly. Here he is.
All right. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Whoa.
All right. I don't know what you played, but I'm sure it was cool. Anyways.
It was a bit funky.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check it out later.
So
But,
it was the same clip, that one that my friend sent me. I can't remember his name. I wanted to thank him. So yeah, so I mean this craziness, this duality playing in ways it's never had, so amplified. It's so Point of context. What? Like
Well,
Joe Biden press conference, and Todd walks outside, and the mother tree says, "Would you like to align with me today?" Like these two things happening at the same time within minutes of each other. It's just a small metaphor, right? Like, is that just my imagination? And what else is going on?
well, the thing is, you said, first of all, the truth. I mean, the thing is, many of us, and I use the word us all the time because sometimes I get involved in it myself, but us being all of us, one other, kind of look for the truth outside of ourselves. Okay. And so it's like, I don't know what to say, what to believe, or what to put my attention on. And I need to find out what the truth is, For example, the so-called V, the jab and whatever else, just as an example. What is the truth? Is it actually good for me? Is it bad for me? How bad is it? Do I do this and whatever else, right? So in your example, you're looking for the truth by experts or so-called experts, and you're going to get all sides of things because everybody's going to have different. And I've heard some parts, and I look at, of course, all of us to a certain degree, if we allow ourselves, when you hear things, you know what is off and what is accurate, okay? And what role it can play. So the thing is, what you are seeing is the truth walking side by side. It is the projected truth that everybody's trying to say, and there's many layers of that. And then there is the truth of your own knowing of what is and what isn't, that, and what benefits you and what doesn't benefit you, and what will give you whatever. So the shift is with what is being intensified now, especially in this month, next month specifically, is really to go to connect with ourselves and use another level of discretion and discernment and accessing your own knowing. It's about really feeling. I'm not talking about emotional feeling. I'm talking about true feeling from within. What is something that you either put attention in or play with, and so forth. It doesn't matter if there's 10 versions and you now say, which version do I pick? No, the real, what we know within, it's not about picking a version. It's about looking at those versions if you feel drawn to do so. And then create the version that most align within you, taking possibly little fragments of it or none of it. Okay. Like, with my own personal experience, I share my experience just for, how can I say, for relatability. I would hear what people would say, and whatever the media brings and whatever else, even the so-called alternative information, whatever it is. When I hear it within myself, I would know, oh yeah, it's not that way, it's this way. In fact, when I hear it, it actually fits in pieces that I wouldn't have not gotten if I didn't hear it, because then, over the years, I used to love to hear stuff that was skewed, because my higher self would say, no, that's not true, but this is it. This is how it works. And that's how I learned within myself as the human, observing all of these things. We all have that capability, and many of us are using it. And then many of us have not given ourselves the capacity to do that. So the focus is to get to your own truth and your own sovereignty, your own self-governance, self-direction, and to use purely what we call your own free will, which we all have and always had, instead of using other reference point. Because look at it right now. Things are accentuated, even more powerful, there is more mandates, more restrictions, more of, if you want to be part of this community, and if you don't want to be outside of that, you need to now comply. You need to be like us, or whatever it is. Why is all of that? So that we go within our core and say, no, I do not comply. I do not choose, but not in a rebellious or the fact that F you, because I'm going to do what I want to do. No, it's about, thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Because that is my own choice, my own self-direction, and I'm using my own guidance system. And you can say, because when you're coming in from that point, Todd, when you are saying, I'm going to be this, and I'm not going to have anybody change me, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to come and challenge you. Why? Because you're instigating the challenge for yourself to get to the point where you're no longer in that state. You're in pure, rock solid self-directive, right? Because one of the examples I gave, and I'm going to give different ones anyways, but when somebody comes into you and says, well, did you get jobbicated, right? And you can go and say, no, it's bullshit, it's this, it's that, it harms you, or whatever it is, right? Or the fact of saying, no, it can harm you, or it's this or that. You're going to get people to challenge. Well, science is saying this.
Or you can say MYOFB. Now, the thing is,
there's another part, and I will share that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
first.
I was just going to say, and I should have been more explicit when I said a Joe Biden press conference, and I walked out because you actually made me. I was talking about being upstairs, grab a coffee, flip on YouTube, and see him falling asleep or inventing new words with Bidenese, such as right?
Yeah.
So I'm laughing, and then I walk outside, and it was actually what you said a while ago about the way your higher self would tell you what wasn't and what was, right? So I actually I saw it, then I walked outside. Now I do commune with the trees, but in this particular case, it was the first time I heard her voice say, would you like to align with me? So that's what I was talking about. It wasn't that, and not to take anything away from what you're explaining, because obviously it's relevant in on a lot of people's minds.
Well, it is. And yes, so the invitation that you got from the tree is, come and play in our playground. And, it's kind of, basically you're connecting with nature, because you are part of nature, and connecting in your true self, because the other part is kind of outside of a projected view of non-natural state, right? But now it's like, come and commune with me, because you're ready to be commune. You're ready to be in alignment in that degree. So to go back to the other one, because you wanted to know what was part of the update.
Yes.
So the other part of it, when you are rock solid within yourself and you are coming from that state, when somebody comes to you and says, well, did you get jobbicated or whatever else, and you're coming from that rock solid, and they go, yeah, I understand a lot of people are doing it, whatever that may be at this point in time, but I kind of respect my body, I respect myself, and I kind of tune in and see what my body says and what I feel within myself, if I'm all in alignment or not. So I just kind of respect that. They don't know how to handle that, especially if they're coming in from that point. Oh, okay. And then the topic drops. And I've done that many times now with other people. Well, did you get jabbicated? No, it didn't resonate with me, whatever else, or it didn't feel like something, I just use different words for different people. It's almost your higher self is the one that's communicating. And it just changes, rather than saying, well, science is this and science is that.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because
that's a good one.
You're just going that I respect my body, I connect with my body. My body said no. And somebody turns around and it's not being coerced into going one way or another. It's a matter about staying rock solid. So that's what the focus of this month and next month is, to really stimulate and say, well, there's a lot of different narratives, a lot of different stories, a lot of different information, but what truth do I believe? Like I was saying, I have 10 options or 100 options. What truth do I believe? What do I believe? You say, I don't want to believe anything. I want to connect with myself, and I govern from myself. And then I know exactly what I need to play with and not play with at any point in time. And you're no longer using the external as your reference point.
I love that.
But you know what ends up happening? When you're using your internal self-guidance, you start to shift your reality, your relationship with your reality and with others. And then you'll see that whatever oppositions and polarization starts to change. And even if it is reflected, you're not going to have to hold guard, because you're already in that pure, full oneness state. And then whatever doesn't want to merge with that oneness will just kind of move away, whatever it is. So it's very, very different. So that's what the focus is in right now, for the next the next couple of months specifically, that it's for us to refer within and not to connect with everything that's going on. And then when you connected with the tree, it says, come on home, because you're
that's what I mean. It's like the parallel. It was and then the way you explained your own experience, it was the same pattern. And I love what you said about this third choice, right? It reminds me of the mashed potato story. So I was married, I had 3 children, and I went through a divorce. Got remarried. My children come to stay with me for the summer. And my youngest son walks into the bedroom. He says, Dad, I just don't understand why you and Mom can't be together. And this kid, and I knew that if I went one side or the other, that was polarizing. And so finally I realized, okay, wait a minute, this kid hates mashed potatoes. And I said, well, it's kind of like this. It's like, you don't like mashed potatoes. And he's like, I don't like mashed potatoes. I said, well, to me, like, it's like eating mashed potatoes. And to your mom, it's like eating mashed potatoes. We would have to eat mashed potatoes to be with each other. And he's like, oh, okay. So, that's just a funny anecdote, but that third option that you provide is actually it's just a different flavor of it, but it's actually that same thing that we talked about earlier in your experience with the bully, because you're basically projecting it, you're reflecting right back to them, to that person, And even like the bully, if they don't even know what it is, they don't have anything to say, because you haven't followed the norm of choosing one side or the other. You just said, my body says no, which is beautiful. The middle road.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it just, it doesn't resonate. My body doesn't feel for it. And that's it. I mean, especially when you say I'm honoring my body and so forth, people relate with that,
That's
and
the
it's
point.
like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
That's
Okay.
the point. Yeah.
When even Papa, you say, well, why don't you drink? Why don't you smoke? Why didn't you never in your life and any of that stuff? And I go, well, I tuned into it. It didn't seem like my body, and I wanted to have that connection, that experience. That's all. I'm not saying that somebody else wouldn't be open to it, but for me, it wasn't that. Same thing with being vegan and whatever else. I've been vegan for so many years.
Well, you've rubbed off on me, I got to tell you.
But the point is, it's like, what made you make the choice? And he goes, well, it's not. Like, I have compassion for the animals too, but that wasn't the driving force. I just paid attention to the body. The body didn't like that type of food. It didn't resonate with that food. So basically, to me, it was like, okay, this other food feels really good. Even though my mother started calling me a rabbit because I ate rabbit food, according to their viewpoint. And the reason, it was just because I connected with the body. The body would tell me, This feels good. This doesn't. Okay, great. Let's stick with what feels good, not what doesn't feel good.
So you're saying that there will be an expansion in the field of this reflection, as we go into a higher discernment, people reflecting what truth. I mean, that's truth when you say you had the energetic exchange with the bully and what they received from it, or from somebody asking you and expecting for you to choose one side or the other, because it hasn't been awakened in them that there is a third choice, which is my body says no. I mean, so that's going to expand. That can only mean, to me, that sounds like equilibrium. It sounds like unity. It sounds like, at least in the direction of more oneness.
Yes. So, like, for example, like going back to that part, you can, like, if you asked my personal experience, but anybody's personal experience, they get bullied. Okay. You can ask a therapist, you can ask other people and say, who was wrong here? And of course they're going to say, oh, the victimizer was wrong, or maybe you instigated the victimizer. I've heard it from women that I used to do some sessions with. It's like one side would say, oh, that guy was horrible. He shouldn't have never touched you. Shouldn't have done that. The other, and then you would hear the other views from other people saying, well, how did you seduce them? Did you wear provocative or whatever you call it, clothing, or did you, lead them on or something of that nature? So you're going to get different truths. But the thing is, when you're connecting with yourself, your true self, your pure self, and so forth, and when you're connecting with yourself, you're going to see what the truth is. Oh, it's just an experience. We've agreed to do this. My truth is, oh yeah, I could see the dance of how we played, and that particular experience allowed me to have something that I wanted to have, or whatever it is, and it also made me choose to say, okay, I respect my body. I'm not going to, do this or that, whatever that may be. So, yeah. So the focus is connecting with that truth within you, and that truth now sees the beauty of the dance, sees neutrality, sees perfection, sees harmony, sees full spectrum, 0 point, whatever you want to call it, and all of that, oneness. But the thing is, the other part of the focus is, and I didn't get to say that part of it, but I'm going to say it now. The focus is, do not, I don't like that word. Okay. Shift your focus on from the external to the internal. And I'm not looking at the internal emotional and stories and whatever else, but the internal of what feels really aligned and great for you, like feels like home within you, and start to envision, dream, and imagine that world that feels so amazing in you, not ego version of it, where, you have lots of riches and you have toys and you have playmates, you have, that can be part of it, but it's not, if that's the focus, then it's not. But a world of harmony, a world where everybody is playing together, everybody is, flourishing, and whatever feels so true to you, a world where you see yourself as a specific reflection, a world where you see yourself being complementary to whatever the dance is going to be, and put that focus within you rather than the focus outside of you. So there's two parts: the focus of saying what feels totally harmonious to me. So whatever anybody's projecting on me, saying, well, you should or shouldn't, whatever it is, you're not going to go in that. You're going to connect with that part of you. And then the next level of that part of you is seeing the world that is inside of you, that new world that you want to unpack, that new world that wants to be projected out. Because as you're projecting it out, it starts to shift your realities and the collective screen. The collective screen is saying, hey, like, we're waiting for you to be you, the genuine you, you to project something that is pure you, rather than another reflection of the movie. Because many of us have taken on the role, and yet I had a certain level of perfection, a role that we reflect what we see. We reflect what we believe to be various truths, or whatever we want to call it. But now it's saying, no, we're done with that. We now stop referring to the reflection, the movie around us, and we tap into the movie within us and project that new movie out. And then as you're doing that, you're now a catalyst, not only for your own reality, but the collective reality. So even every part of us is saying the same thing. It's time to come from within out rather than from out to within, because all we've been doing, we've been conditioned to look at the world, to learn from the reflection how to play, how to align with the reflection. Look, I said this some years ago and some people thought I was crazy, but then later on, many years later, they kind of understood it. I said, there's two things you can do. You can learn, how can I say, learn how to play the game better. So you go to school and you learn how to play the money game, how to play the social game, how to play societal game, how to play the game better. Okay, so let me learn how to play the game better, or you change the game. You create a new game.
Right.
When you get to your genuine self, you came here to play a new game, to project a new game, not to learn to play the game. This is why some years ago, this whole theme started where we deprogram ourselves, deprogramming ourselves on how to play the game better, to changing the game to what matches our higher.
I like that. There is a distinction too. This is good because I think it captures some of the transition that's occurred in the last going on 2 years. The old methods, I guess, versus the new way, which is both require some deprogramming. But in one case, you're deprogramming and reprogramming to conform to that which already is there, which is like trying to conform to something that's not in alignment to begin with. Yet you're saying the alternative being to deprogram and reconstruct, in essence, a new world. Can you like give us an example of something like that? Like, I mean, I guess maybe something easy would be like a job or a relationship, but this sounds a lot bigger than that. And I don't mean collectively, I mean from an individual standpoint. How do I change the game? If, let's say, I'll just use me as an example. If the game says I have to get a passport, I have to get on a plane or a boat to swim to Australia to be with Morgan Lee, I'm already investigating and open to changing the game. It just wasn't, I guess, as conscious as you explain it. So can you give us an example?
Yeah. Okay. So what people do, we all do to some degree, or have done for the longest time, and many are doing less, is that we conform with, say, you try to conform with your family, you try to conform with society, you try to conform with your community, try to conform with your work, and so forth. Okay? So if work says this is the way the game is played, you want to conform, you go in and say, well, I don't want to lose the job, I want to keep the job, then you're going to conform to it. Now, of course, there's more requirements. Well, if you want to play here, you got to be jabicated. You got to have some passport of some sort that you have been this or that. So that is trying, the choice comes to us, and this is where a lot of focus is. The choice is, do I conform to what is being projected, or do I make a statement to myself saying, no, I'm going to do what I want to do? Like somebody says, well, you can't travel unless you have this passport, you've been having been jabicated, or that you do conform to this thing, and so forth. So that's kind of a choice. You could say, well, I got to conform to that. Or you say, no, I'm going to see myself traveling freely without any of that requirement, because I am not here to conform and I am not here to fight it. If anybody wants to play the game, have fun. But I'm not going to play the game. But you're not coming in and as a rebellious, you're going to start envisioning, seeing the world where it doesn't have those requirements. And as long as you're in that state and you become more and more comfortable, then your surroundings, your reality starts to change. Everybody's roles will change. And then the openings will come about for you to be able to have that experience without complying. Right. And this is where it's important for us right now, because compliance and is a huge mandate, but really it's for us to get to the point of saying, okay, what do I choose? Do I choose to comply, or do I choose to be genuinely myself? So you go to work, and I've seen this with other people, including some family members, okay, where they lost their jobs because of their particular role required jobication, for example, right? And they lost their job, and they said, no, I'm staying true to myself. Well, guess what happened? Sometime later, a few months later, they get called back because we need you. We need what you provide. And the person that I'm referring to, one of the many, said, but I'm coming this way where I'm going to be true to myself, and I'm not going to be, jobicating myself. And I'm not going to be tested either, okay, on a regular basis. If I do not feel well, I will go home, because then I have symptoms or whatever it is. I agree with that. What do? They say, okay, come on back. We'll make allowance.
That's reform as opposed to conform. I just realized that we have the silent unification. 20-minute starts in 7 minutes.
Oh, okay. I better.
We could go on all day. No, this is great stuff. The best show yet. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's all about the moment, and great conversation always with Franco. And I hate to leave you.
But, we get to play in 2 weeks anyways. I think we're scheduled in a couple of weeks. Yeah,
right on. I'm going to put up the link on my page. There is a event has been up for a while on Morgan Yvonnya, my page, Soulology page, but I'll put the link up for the Zoom room. Anybody wants to join us, silent unification gathering, and we'll be there in the Zoom room in 6 minutes. So, Franco, I love you. I love Kimberly. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of this amazing vortex called Soulology, which is expanding always through adding frequencies to an ever-expanding vibration. Thank you, Franco. See you later.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.